Now, over the last few months, Turo has made some major strides in trying to make the lives of hosts more streamlined, more efficient, and more profitable. And today, I want to talk about some of those changes that are coming or have been in the works for the last few months. Now, I know, I'm one of those YouTubers out there that makes quite a lot of videos talking about the downsides of what can go wrong with the Turo fleet, talking about what happens if your car is in an accident, if your car gets stolen, what can go wrong with Turo. And the reason why I make so many videos on this topic is because I think it's very important to go into the dark side of operating a Turo business so everybody knows what they can expect. Because the unfortunate reality is not everything goes to plan. In fact, a lot of things don't go to plan. But I also think it's equally as important to talk about the good things of Turo, more specifically the things that Turo is doing to benefit hosts around the country. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Now, first and foremost is new rules and regulations coming to Las Vegas. So if you are a Turo host located in Clark County or Las Vegas, Nevada, then this is the section for you. Last year, a piece of legislation titled SB 389 was passed in the state of Nevada. And what this bill did was it basically made it so that the rules and regulations for peer-to-peer car sharing would be left up to individual counties. So it would basically determine, number one, are peer-to-peer car sharing hosts a business? And number two, if they are a business, how will their regulations and how will their licensing and permitting process look like? So because of SB 389, over the last year, you've seen a number of different counties in Nevada come out with their different bills and propositions on how they're going to handle this and what type of regulations they're going to implement, if any, for different car sharing hosts. But let's face it, in the state of Nevada, there is one county that most Turo hosts care about, and that is Clark County, the county where Las Vegas, Nevada is in. Las Vegas has 32 million annual visitors, which means it could be an absolute goldmine for Turo hosts. And for anybody who's able to run their business efficiently and effectively in that county, you could stand to make a ton of money. So how Clark County decides to proceed with SB 389, that was something that was really important to Turo hosts. And as of last week, it seems like we have some really solid direction on how they're going to be approaching this. Last week, the Clark County Board of Commissioners had a meeting on how they are going to approach peer-to-peer car sharing from a business standpoint and from a regulation standpoint. And keep in mind that this doesn't only apply to Turo hosts, even if I'm focusing specifically on Turo hosts in this video. It applies to anybody who is operating a peer-to-peer car sharing fleet. Whether you do it on Turo, Getaround, Avail, HireCar, whatever the case is, these rules and regulations would apply to you. And during this meeting, they discussed and proposed a new chapter, which is called Chapter 6.105, which is a chapter specifically dedicated to peer-to-peer car sharing. According to this piece of legislation introduced into Clark County, you cannot operate a peer-to-peer car sharing business without a license. You must obtain a license from Clark County Department of Business License, which will cost you $45 in an application fee, and then you will be charged by car. So your exact licensing fee will be structured based off of how many cars you own. You can see here the fee structure. If you have not more than 5 cars, it's $50 per year, 6 to 10 cars, $100 per year, 11 to 25, $250 per year, and you can see the breakdown here even further. This is the fee that would be paid by the Turo host. So for example, if you are wanting to operate within Clark County, you would have to pay these fees in order to be able to operate. Then if we scroll down from here, you can see that there's the fee structure of what the platform would have to pay. So in this example, it would be Turo, Getaround, whatever the case is. This is the platform that is hosting the vehicles. And you can see here that if you have not more than 1,000 cars, it's $1,000, 101 to 500, 5,000. It goes up from there. And if you have more than 7,000 cars available, then it costs $75,000 per year. This is an annual fee that you have to pay every single year. And the thing that I found interesting, but not surprising at all, is the fact that Clark County is defining a Turo business as somebody that has even just one car. I think oftentimes in the peer-to-peer car sharing world, there is like kind of this idea that like, hey, if you just have a couple of cars, you're just a normal person loaning out your car to them. It's not a business, it's not anything, it's just a revenue stream. But that definitely is not how Clark County sees it, and they definitely have the viewpoint of, hey, if you have even one car, that is a business, and thus you will have to pay proper business licensing and annual fees. And according to this proposition, it also says that the peer-to-peer car sharing platform will be required to help enforce this rule. So basically what that means is that in the case of Turo, Turo will have to let their Clark County host know, hey, you're going to have to get a business license now. And then once this law goes into effect, they will then have to be required to check and make sure and verify that these hosts have licensings. And if they don't, then Turo could potentially have to terminate their profile and their account because they're not adhering to Clark County rules and regulations. Now, whether or not Turo is actually going to do that, I'm not exactly sure. They have not made a statement to that specific portion of the bill, but that is something that is currently outlined as it stands today. The one big piece of the puzzle here that I think could be a huge win is about airports. As of right now, you are not able to operate at the Las Vegas airport. And so anybody who lives in Clark County or lives in Las Vegas and you're wanting to host on Turo, you're not able to pick guests up from the airport. In fact, as things stand now, you could get a ticket, you could be fined. But as things currently stand, you would be able to pay for the proper permitting in order to do this. So if you're a Turo host that is interested in picking up guests from the airport, this door would now be able to be open for you to where you could do this openly and you wouldn't have to worry about getting in trouble. This section is found on page 7, operations at the airport, and it states, a shared vehicle owner is not authorized to drop off, pick up, or otherwise conduct any business related to the sharing of a vehicle through a peer-to-peer car sharing program on any airport property owned or maintained by Clark County Department of Aviation without displaying a valid decal in the shared vehicle issued by the Department of Business license. Nothing in this section shall be constructed to prohibit the Clark County Department of Aviation from requiring a shared vehicle, whether or not the shared vehicle owner is operating as a corporation, limited partnership, or LLC. Then it goes on to say, obtain a permit or certificate from the Clark County Department of Aviation to operate at the airport. You then have to pay a fee in order to get this permit, and you have to comply with the Clark County Department of Aviation in order to obtain and continue to obtain this permit. Now, I am of course not a proponent of more fees and more regulation, but the unfortunate reality of every single Turo host out there is that as Turo becomes a more viable and more popular business model out there, both from a consumer's perspective as well as from an entrepreneur side hustle's perspective, there is bound to be more regulation. And that's whenever we run into issues that we've seen so far in states like New York and Hawaii, where they have flat out banned Turo or alternatively heavily looked at banning it. In my opinion, I think that states going in and regulating this business model and treating it like a proper business that is required to pay business fees, that is how we solidify the future of Turo in the United States. Because the truth is, local municipalities and governments aren't going to want to miss out on the potential fees and the potential revenue stream of requiring business permits for these type of business owners. And I think that Clark County has really recognized this. Once Turo and peer-to-peer car sharing starts to be treated like a proper business rather than a side hustle, that's whenever we can begin getting equal treatment and equal opportunities to the rental car companies out there. And by implementing permits and business licensing and annual fees, that's whenever the money starts to be generated for these local governments, and thus they finally have some skin in the game here, and they're going to want to help us succeed rather than find ways to shut us down. So though I'm definitely not a proponent for regulation, I ultimately think that regulating peer-to-peer car sharing is the only way that we can guarantee that there is a future for peer-to-peer car sharing to have. And in the case of this regulation, yeah, you have to pay an annual fee, but the ability to operate at the Las Vegas airport without any pushback, that is a huge opportunity that will end up making you way more money than the annual fee that you would be paying. And so there's definitely a huge benefit, and those benefits outweigh the cons by tenfold, in my opinion. Next, I want to talk about an article that I found that was published on May 19th, 2022, so just a few days ago. And this article is titled, Turo Ends Dual Listing Prohibition Following Competition Bureau Investigation. Now, you guys may or may not know that Turo has an exclusivity clause. And what this means is that if you have a car that's listed on Turo, you cannot list that car anywhere else on any other platform. It doesn't matter if that car is not being actively rented out. It doesn't matter if you're blocking off calendars for different dates. If you have a car on Turo, you cannot simultaneously have that exact same car on GetAround, HireCar, or Avail. It is against the terms of service, and if Turo was to find out that you did have this and you had cars on multiple platforms at once, you could be potentially kicked off the platform as a whole. But there was recently an investigation in Canada that was incredibly interesting, and it ultimately led to this rule being revoked in the entire country. Now, this is of course good news for any Canadian host out there, but whenever it comes to my American audience and my American hosts out there, where I think that this could be a pretty big game changer is that if this was investigated in Canada, I could definitely see this begin to be investigated in America as well. And I think that this is kind of the first step of taking away the exclusivity clause as a whole. Now, as things stand today, this exclusivity clause is still active in the US, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that gets investigated in the future. And if it does, I think that Turo will have no choice but to take this policy away altogether, which would be really great news for hosts all around the country and all around the world. And last but not least is good news for Turo hosts, because this is a marketing initiative that Turo is taking to get more renters into the doors renting cars on the Turo platform. In an article published a few days ago, it stated that Capital One Venture is offering 5 to 10 times miles with Turo. It then goes on to say that Turo and Capital One have launched a new partnership. The Capital One Venture X credit card is now offering 10x venture miles for Turo spending, and the Capital One Venture Rewards credit card is now offering 5 times venture miles for Turo spending. Now, this partnership will last for 1 year from May 17th, 2022 to May 23rd, 2023, and this is a really, I think, a big deal in the right direction, because one thing that Turo has been missing out on over the last few years has been these point accumulation services. Points are a really big deal, and people who value points really, really value them, and they will go with providers of rental cars, hotels, and airlines that they can use points for. And Turo has been very, very limited in this regard, and because of that, they've been behind the competition. So by Venture and Capital One partnering with Turo to offer this partnership, that's a huge stride in the right direction. So all in all, I think that this will help open more doors for Turo hosts. I think that this could help make the brand awareness around Turo larger as well. And I think it will encourage people to rent through Turo, because now there is a monetary reward in order to do so. It will incentivize repeat renters. It will incentivize people to choose Turo versus the competitors. This is a huge win, and I think it will be a big benefit to Turo hosts. I'm excited to see how this works out over the next year, and if Capital One will continue partnering with Turo in the future. Now, as I was editing this video, there was some additional good news that was released, and as of yesterday, news has come out that Turo will be returning to the state of New York. Now, they announced this via email to hosts that have in the past inquired about operating in the state of New York, but as of right now, that is basically all we know. We don't know any sort of timeline. We don't know if there's going to be any specific regulations and rules for the state. We really don't know a whole lot of anything. All Turo said is that they're coming back to the state of New York, and they would be following up with more information. So I will be creating probably a standalone video on this topic once we do learn more about what is happening in the state. But all in all, this is excellent news. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.